Hello and welcome to the CIS 251 Online Attendance Project, Part 1. So at this point you should have already done what was talked about in the welcome video, and that is downloading and installing Visual Studio 2022, checking the correct workloads that are on the Start Here page in Blackboard, downloading and unzipping your data files and so forth, or just downloading them and putting them somewhere. So the first thing we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to make a couple working directories. And I'm going to go into my hard drive here. CIS 251. All right, let's drill down into that. Now, you don't have to put your data files here, but I would recommend it because you keep everything together. Oh, data files. This is where you can unzip them or move them to if you already downloaded them. And we're going to create another one called projects. Okay, inside of here you will have all your project directories. The attendance project, we're just going to call it project 1 because it's really not a project 1. And then project 3, project 4, and so forth. So you'll have directories for all of these in here, but when you get through all the way up to 13, project 13. So that's that, all right? Let's go ahead and fire up Visual Studio 2022 or whatever the most current version is, in case I use this in the future. All right, so we're going to create a new project. And again, you can stop and start this video if it kind of goes a little too fast for you. All right, so right here we want to type in the search bar empty because we want a C++ empty project. And as you can see, it's right there. C++, make sure it says C++. Empty project. This is going to be a console app. It's not going to be a Win format. All right, so now we click, after we get that selected, click Next. All right, let's tell it where to put it. It's going to be on our hard drive, CIS 251 projects. Now, this is not the project name. This is the storage directory into which we're going to create the solution, which is what they call projects. Now, you'll notice solution name tracks to that. Just call it project 1. Let's see, let's put a space in there. You can call it whatever you want because it doesn't really matter. Now all the others, I want you to call them, the project number for the chapter, so 3, 4, and so forth. Make sure you have place solution and project in the same directory. If you don't have this checked, make sure it's checked because it's going to spread it out all over the place. Some of it will be in the Visual Studio install directory. So when you get ready to zip it up, I'm not going to be able to run it if this isn't checked because everything needs to be in that directory. Click Create. Okay, I don't care about that. What's new? All right, as you can see, we have an empty solution, empty project, project 1. There's no source file. We now need to add the source file. Okay, so right-click on source file, select Add, New Item. All right, we want a C++ file, and I'm just going to name this .cpp, which is C++, the file extension. I'm going to name the project from source, which is the default, to the name of the project. In this case, it's project 1. In the future, when you're doing other projects, you'll name it project 2, 3, 4, whatever it happens to be. Make sure you're using Visual C++. If you've used this in other classes, this may be Visual Basic.NET or C#. Okay, so we got all that, looks like. You don't have to do the browse thing. It's going to put it right where you told it to create the solution. And just click Add. Okay, so here we have an empty project. We have a source file, but there's nothing in it. In fact, if you try to run it like this, it's going to throw an error because it doesn't know what to do with this. It's just an empty file. So let's minimize Visual Studio and go back to Blackboard and go to Content and Student Resources. CIS 251 Student Template File. This is what you're going to copy and paste in each one of these. This is the bare minimum template or shell that will run a project, a console app project. Now in the video, you may see a system pause down in here because I'm using an older video once I get past the newer part of it. You can ignore that. It's no longer needed in debug. Okay, that was to keep it from running all the way to return 0 and you're just flashing up a window real quick and closing it. That's not going to happen now. So just copy and paste it. So copy it, and let's pull up our empty project again. Put your cursor right there next to line 1 and paste it. Now you have it. This is a multi-line comment. Starts off with a / asterisk and ends with a */ If I take this out or accidentally forget to put it in the end, it's going to turn the entire thing into a comment. See, turned it green. So that'll really mess you up. That's one thing you need to look out for. So I put it back in. In here, you just basically every time you do this, you'll have this in here. So just put sample project and whoops. Crap. There we go. There we go. Author, me, description, just put a description in there. I don't want you to put this. I want you to get a little more serious in case you have to show it to somebody, but for me, that's good. So this is a single line comment, 2 / or 2 right pointing slashes. These are your includes. You may have a bunch more in here. This is just for the keyboard to screen, input, output, stream is what that stands for. And as I said in class the other day, C++ considers, or the designers of C++ considers the flow between the keyboard and the processor and the screen, so forth, streams of input and output. Why am I getting this? What? I don't know what's going on here. Press F5, see. Yes, when you do this, always make it recompile. Oh, that'll go. Yeah, it went away. I don't know what was going on there. Somehow or another, it thought UDE was a keyword and it didn't know what to do with it. So anyway, if I compile it at this point by pressing F5 or going up to debug and pressing run, I should get, assuming I don't have any errors, I should just get a black screen. Well, there it goes. My virus stuff's doing its thing. What's going on here? There it goes. Sorry about that. So it says press any key to continue. I haven't told it to do anything. It's just a shell. Pops up a window and it says press any key to continue. The reason we put, whoops, come on now, let go. This sample pause, system pause in here is if I didn't put that in there or wasn't in there, you'd never see that window just pop up and close real quick. And the reason is in debug mode, when it hits this return 0, and this is a value returning function, actually, main is, it returns a 0 back to the operating system, which tells the operating system, this program's finished, I'm going to snatch it out and free up some memory for another application or whatever. So I'll show you what happens if we comment this out. Okay. Save it and run it. Yes, I would like to recompile it. Always do that. It takes a little bit of time. I don't know why it does, but it shouldn't. And there we go with my antivirus. I forgot to turn it off. Okay, thank you. Come on. Oh, that's what it did. It just popped up and then went away. In other words, we have to stop it. If we don't stop it, we won't be able to tell what's going on. So you would take this line of code out if you were doing a release project, which means there would be no debug code in there. It would be a lot leaner and smaller and run faster. This is just for developing something. So our little handout says we're doing a net pay calculation. And if you see here, we've got declarations, input, processing, and output. Well, input, processing, and output, that's the three things you do, your program does. You grab input, you process it, and you output the answer. Okay, so that's what that does. Of course, down here we got function declarations, which we're not going to do right now, prototypes up here. So, if we're going to get information to calculate net pay, what do we need from the user? Well, we're going to need the gross pay, and we're going to need the deduction. So that's two inputs that we're going to have to get from the user in order to calculate net pay. You have to have some inputs from somewhere. So we need variables or memory locations in which to store this data. And you can also have intermediate calculations that you actually do the calculation and stick it in memory. So anytime you've got to do anything and hang on to anything, you've got to have a location in memory, and that's a variable declaration. So since we're talking about dollars and cents, we need a number with decimal components. So that would be a double or a float. Let's use double. I'll explain that to you at some point in class while we're doing that. Gross pay. Remember that we use camel casing. So if it's one word, it's all lowercase. If it's more than one word, every subsequent word starts with an uppercase. So this has 2 words, gross pay. You can't have spaces and that sort of thing, and the book goes into all that. We want to give it an initial value to wipe the memory out, the location, the contents of memory. All right, so there's one. Another one called, I'm going to call it deductions. My wonderful keyboard. Typing 2 and 3 letters at the time. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. I've tried to adjust the speed and all that. Sensitivity, it doesn't work. It's a piece of junk. Okay, so see that? Look. Sometimes I'll get up to 4 letters before I can get my finger off the key. Ridiculous. Or numbers. Deductions is one word, hence it is all lowercase. Don't forget your lines end with a semicolon. And then I need another double into which I'm going to store, or actually memory location containing a double, the actual net pay calculations. Okay, there I did it again. There. Okay. So for now, that's all the variables that we're going to need. Now we got to get our input, and in order to match the screen, and you should have the handout. I don't have it in front of me here, nor do I have it pulled up. I guess I could do that so we can go back and forth. Let's see, content. Working with the touchpad's a pain in the rear end. Assignments and net pay. There we go. There it is. So this is what the output looks like, and it looks like we got a little banner here. It says net pay calculation. So going back to our code, there are 3 things that we use to input and output in a console app like this. I mean, there are more, but just at this point. And they're being used from the IOStream library that was up at the top in the include. So under input, which is a comment, tells me where my stuff goes, I'm going to use a cout statement. This is used for outputting to the screen. And it's separated. You can use multiple strings or numbers or whatever, but it uses left pointing chevrons or less thans. So you have to separate it with that. So those point to the left. Then you have a string. What delineates a string? Double quotes. I can put any string in there that I want, so I'm just going to try to recreate this banner as best I can. Those are just dashes. These are just keyboard characters. Then I have another set of chevrons, and then I have what's called an end line. End L, that's ENDL, semicolon. You can have more than one of those if you want more than one line. So another cout, 2 left pointing chevrons. Then I have a opening closing paren. I have a plus, and then the text net pay calculator. And now I don't have enough space in here, so I'm going to add a little bit more. You can play with this if you want. It's all just for grins anyway. Line that up. There we go. Need another end L. If you don't put an end L in there, it'll put it all in one line. That won't look very good, will it? Whoop. All right, now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to copy this line because it's the same length. If you look at the output, you'll see that. Or at the screenshot. So I'm going to copy it. What's going on? Formatting selection. Cancel. I don't know what's going on. What? Not responding. Look at that. See? Isn't that wonderful? Let's go back to the net pay calculator. So this first line, this last line are the same thing. So all I'm doing right now is doing this little banner if I ever get it back to it without locking up on me. There we go. I guess it let go. All right, copy, and I'm going to paste it right here. Let's go ahead and press Control S to save. Now, there's a save sample.cpp and then save all. I always go to save all because you can have multiple source files and multiple files open at once and working on them all. And if you just hit this, it only saves the current one, the one that you selected that you're working in. I like to save everything just to be on the safe side. So, but Control S will work as well.
Okay, so that gets that. Now I need to ask the user for some input. Now you will use in combination the cout statement and a cin statement. What the cout statement does is just output. Cin takes keyboard input and places it into a variable that's in the statement, or to the memory location pointed to by the name of the variable. So we'll start out with, these usually come in pairs. I mean, you got to tell the user what it is you're asking for before you try to get it. So another cout, and we're going to say, what does it say? Let's go back to the, where is it? Where is it? Nope. Dang. I must have closed it. Open it again. Oh, there it is right there. Sorry. Keep forgetting where everything's at. All right, so it says, please enter the gross pay. So that's my output, and then I'm going to grab this input and put it in gross, or gross pay, whatever we call that variable. So that's what cin will do for you. So let's do that. Cout, please enter the gross pay amount. See what's going on? This is driving me insane. Double everything, triple everything. There's an extra space. Look at that. Must be something wrong with this blasted thing. I don't know. And then you put a colon and a space by default, which my colon didn't work. Now put 2 in. All right, so you always end these prompt strings. That's what I call them. They're prompts to the user with a colon and a space. The reason for that is you need to have a cursor setting not right up on top of that colon there, or the T in amount, so that the user can see it better. So it's just, you know, that stuff carries over into Windows too, even though you don't need it in the Windows program. It's just from by default through de facto standards, you might say. Now notice I did not put an end-L at the end of this cout because I want the cursor to remain on that line so it's flashing when the cin happens. So let's put our cin. Remember I told you they come in pairs. 2 right-pointing chevrons and the name of the memory location into which the cin needs to place the keyboard data. Well, what's the name of that variable? Gross pay. So that's what I put here. Oh, wow. I apologize for this. I need a new laptop, it looks like. And then a semicolon. Okay. Now I have to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it for deductions. If you go back and look at this, you'll see another cout cin pair. Please enter the total deduction amount. Okay, so let's go back to here, and what I'm going to do is I'm lazy, so I'm just going to copy and paste this and change. You don't have to do this. I'm going to change the text and the variable name because it's just a pair. It's just another pair. So here I'll say, please enter, what does it say, the total deduction amount. All right, and then instead of gross pay, it's deductions is my variable name. So if you do this, make sure that you put the right variables in here. Deductions. Notice that it recognizes that as a valid name. So let's save it. Now let's run it and see if we have any errors. All right. And I'll do one to show you a typical error. Now you always want to, yes, I want to rebuild it. Always rebuild it. While I'm waiting and grab a sip of coffee here. All right. I'm going to put 100 in there. You put anything you want. 65. Pressing key to continue. Okay, that's because it ran down to the return 0 or the system pause. Okay, so we have that. So now if we got some processing to do. Why did it do that again? I don't know. Oh, that's because the antivirus program's going nuts. It doesn't like these little applications. I guess it thinks it's malicious code. So our processing. How do you calculate net pay? Does anybody know? Well, you probably need to know if you ever get paid via paycheck because they're going to take out, you know, taxes and Social Security and all that. Well, let's see what I've got in the instructions here. I probably have the formula. It's net pay equals what? Gross pay minus deductions. Okay, so let's go back. So I have an assignment I have to put in here, right? Net pay, assignment, gross pay minus deductions. Since my keyboard's going nuts, I'm going to try to go take as many shortcuts as I can here. So if my gross pay is 100 and my net pay is 25, excuse me, my deductions are 25, how much is my net pay going to be? Well, it's 100 minus 25 is $75, right? Okay. There's my calculation. That's what it's going to do. We got gross pay from the user. Excuse me. We got deductions from the user. Now we're calculating net pay. It's going to pull this out of the gross pay memory. It's going to pull this out of deductions to do the math, because you have to have one value on the right of this assignment operator here, which will be, if it were 175, be if gross pay were $100 and deductions were $75, then what would you have? $25 here. If gross pay was $100 and deductions was $25, you'd have $75 here, and it would assign that into net pay. So net pay at that point, after this line executes, would contain our calculation. Now, there's something that we're going to be using out of IOmanip, or IOstream manipulation, and this has to do with setting the decimal point to 2 places, because in floating point math like this, you can go all the way over to 16 places. The user doesn't want to see that, okay? So we need to fix that before we start outputting anything. And you do that, and if you look at our instructions, this is on the instruction sheet as well. Here it is right here, just before the final output lines, you will need the following line of code in your program. Okay, so what that'll do is it'll tell it it's fixed and set the precision to 2 decimal places to the right, or 2 significant digits to the right of the decimal place. So we have cout fixed. Now, if I didn't include IOmanip up there, this would give me an error. Okay, show point. I mean, show it even if it's 0. So if it were $100, it'd be 100.00. And set precision. See it, there it is. I can do that. And I want it to 2 decimal places. Okay, now let me run this and show you what happens when you leave something off here. It's pretty clear. I'm going to put a couple of end lines in here just to space it out. If you look at the output, you'll see that's the case. I want you to copy this output as much as you can. Okay, so all right, does anybody know where my issue is? Well, it's not here. It thinks it is. It says expected a semicolon. All right, well, I left it off right here, but I'm going to go ahead and save it and compile it. And yes, I want to recompile, and this is why you want to recompile every time, because you might sneak an error in there and not see it. All right, notice what it said. There were build errors. Would you like to continue? No. Always click no. We don't want to click no and go to our error screen. Now, C++ uses error propagation. In other words, the first error might propagate another error, which might propagate another. I might have 5, 10 errors just because of one error. So that if that's the case, you always want to go to the first error in your error window and double click on it. Notice what it says. It's pretty explicit. Expected a semicolon. Now here's the thing. That error is either going to be where the cursor shows up or the line right above it. The reason it's here and not here is because it thinks this is all one line, because there's no line terminator. So it's looking at this saying, I don't know what to do with this. That's why I'm telling you, if you click on the first error and you don't see anything jumping out at you, it could be because it's the one right above it. So I'm going to put my semicolon there because that's what's missing, and I'll push that back. Whoops. There we go. So now I'm going to save it and run it. We're not finished yet, by the way. Not quite. Almost. Let's see. There goes my stupid. Well, at least it's letting this one through. The other ones it wouldn't. Okay, according to the actual document, what's the sample run here? It says we put in 100 and we put in 2375. Okay, So let's go back and let's run it and put in 100. Now notice what happened at minimize. This is going to happen to you. All right, probably. It happens to me all the time. Just did. If you forget this thing is running in debug mode because this window's minimized, and you try to come in here and change the code and it doesn't let you, that's because it's running in debug mode. You have to come up here and end it. But I'm going to go ahead and put in my thing here, 23.75, I think it was. All right. It didn't do anything because we haven't told it to do anything with our calculation yet. All right. So, but at least we didn't get any bugs. It would have shown up when you tried to compile it. So what we want to do now is finish our output. And I believe it's a summary of what they entered and then the net pay. Okay. So we have a series of COUTs here, and you can see that if you go and look. You entered new line, gross pay, $100 with a dollar sign. New line, total deduction, $23.75. New line, and there's actually two new lines, one here and there. Another one of those little banner bars, as I call them. So let's see if we can build that. So you'll have to have that output so you can tell what it's supposed to look like when you finish. You entered. Let's see, you entered ellipses. And then what? I need another. All these strings have to be separated and variables have to be separated by a pair of chevrons depending on if it's C out or C in. That dictates which way they go. I want a new end line, so semicolon. Another C out. Gross pay. Colon. Space dollar sign. Now there are better ways to do this, but we're just going to stick our dollar sign in there. And because there's no space after the dollar sign, it winds up right up against the number. So, whoops. It's supposed to have a semicolon and it didn't show up for some reason. And another end L. Right? Let's save it real quick. Control S. And then I've got another one that says C out. Two chevrons. Total deductions. Colon space. Dollar sign. Remember, you got to have opening and closing double quotes to delineate and tell it is a string literal. And then I put, oh, wait a minute. I forgot something here. I have to actually put my variables in there. Gross pay, if I could type without getting multiple letters. What does that do? Well, that grabs whatever's in gross pay and sticks it in this output line, converts it into a string. So we're good there. Now here, where are the deductions stored? Well, they're stored in a variable called what? Deductions. And again, two more chevrons and a new line. Save it. Now we have, I want two end lines here because that's what it looks like. At least I think that's it. If you look at the output again in the actual specifications document, you'll see that there's a line here and a line here. So it's two end lines. And then I have a banner bar. So I'm going to come up here and grab this one right here. Again, this is kind of tough. I don't have a mouse and I would hate these little touch pads, but you work with what you have sometimes. So this goes here, right? See how I like to copy paste? It's good for you. Saves you a lot of time as long as you remember to change what's needed. Now there's another end L right here, so I'm going to add that in. At least I think there is. At least to make it look correct, the way I've got it set up. All right. And finally, the whole point of the program finally shows up. The net pay. Whoops. Got my string. The net pay is colon space dollar sign. All right. Chevrons. And the name of the variable where we put net pay was called what? See, it's net pay. It makes sense. You name these things so they make a little bit of sense. Okay, and then you have two chevrons and finally an end L. Save it. All right. Here comes the big day. Let's see if this works. F5 to compile it. You can also come up here and do this. And I'll show you how to do the debugger eventually. I'm not going to do that today. That's a little bit beyond what we're doing. F5 to start. Yes, I want to recompile it. Always press that. I can't remember what the, I believe it was 100, 2375, I think. I can't remember. You entered $100. Total deductions $23.75. There's my space banner. Net pay is $76.25. Press any key to continue. Well, just shut it off. I must have done that. I've got a bunch of problems on this laptop. Oh, there it's running it again. I think my antivirus is doing that. I don't know why else it would do it. Let me check my specifications document and see if it's, yeah, $76.25 is what it should be. So $76.25. There's your first program. You should run over this a couple times if you need to. Let me go back to my... All right, so what we're going to do now, we've tested it and it's working, we think. We can run another one if you want to. Let's try a couple of different pieces of data. Let's do 100 and then we'll do deductions 20. Let's do 50. 50% tax bracket for a poor guy making $100 a week. $50. Well, that's pretty bad. You'll see when you start working for this kind of stuff. All right, let's compile it, which we just did. Let's save it, and we're going to close the solution first. Don't close the IDE. I want to close the solution, and then we're going to close this. It's just better to do it that way. A lot less trouble. We don't need this anymore unless we screwed up. So we want to go to File Manager and find our jump drive. In my case, it's going to be here. So there's 251 directory. See, that's 251. There's your projects. Now, you're going to have project 3, 4, 5, 6, all these, because we call this some sample. And notice that Visual Studio created an outermost folder in our projects directory called sample. Could have been project 1, project 3, whatever. Okay, so one other thing while you're in File Explorer, come over here to the View tab. Make sure File Name Extensions is checked. That needs to be checked, and here's why. If you wanted to open this up, the simplest way to do it is just to click on that .sln file. And the reason you have to see that is because the icon, there's several icons that look almost the same for different files. So you have to look at the file extension. And if I double click on this, it's going to open up Visual Studio. Well, of course I want Visual Studio. Why did it ask me that? Oh, it's never run before. With that solution in it, that project. Eventually. So that's a quick and dirty way of doing it. Of course, you got recent files on your interface here. You can do it that way as well. But if you're working on a different computer, then it won't, it won't see those recent files. All right, I just wanted to show you this. It's going to take some time, unfortunately. But we're almost finished, so. All right, come on. Sorry, somebody's calling me. They'll just have to call back. I don't know who it is. Don't care. Don't recognize the number, so. Not a local number. It's 803. That's probably California or somewhere. Okay, you can see it opened it up here. So let's close it. Again, I just wanted you to see that. And then we're going to exit again. Exit the IDE. Okay. Now what I want to do is go to Projects. Now you want this outermost directory here. You don't want to drill down in here and send me something like that or come in here and do this. Everything in here has to be sent to me in order for me to open it up and run it. So what you do is you come under Projects and you find that directory, which in this case is called Sample. Right click on it and we're going to send it to a compressed zip folder. This is what you're going to upload. Has to be done this way. If you don't do it this way, I can't run it. You get a 0. It's very easy to do. Use the default name. That's why we, if it's project 3, it'll be project3.zip or whatever. Okay. See the .zip in the zipper? That's what we're going to place into Blackboard. Oh, I thought I had that open and I didn't, or I closed it. All right, so I'm going to go to courses. There we go. Wallace.edu. Whoops. Gosh, this is running so slow. It's just so slow. Okay, what I'll do is I'll make a second part, and I'll show you this in the second part. So we're sitting here on Blackboard waiting. I don't want you to have to wait, so let me terminate this, and there'll be a part 2. See you then.